Having grown up along the eastern edge of the Great Plains in the rolling hills of Missouri, the geography of Luke's account of Jesus' Beatitudes really stand out for me. For us this morning, the story begins with Jesus going to a mountain to pray. Cyril of Alexandria, in his commentary on this passage, points out that everything Jesus did was for our benefit, that Jesus' conduct and even his choice of geography all model for us a particular way of life. I imagine it is just this insight that drew many of us to this mountain. Certainly, we wouldn't be the first to have this impulse. In the plains that I grew up near, there's something about the way the land stretches out in every direction and the sky curves overhead to meet it on the horizon, which leaves one with a sense of exposure. It's as if there is absolutely nothing separating us from the deep heavens. In contrast, the mountain seems capable of lifting one up above the distractions of the world. The trees offer so much cover that the sky seems to only ever be directly overhead. The plains certainly are a place of prayer in their own right, but the geography itself seems to shape what form that prayer takes. For me, coming to this mountain has felt like coming to a place set apart, a place for all of us to contemplate God and prepare for the work before us. But like most of us who have come here for that purpose, Jesus does not stay on the mountain. He brings his apostles together and descends down into the valley in order to offer his sermon on the plain to the multitude of people gathered. The content of this sermon is clearly paralleled in Matthew's Sermon on the Mount. In both accounts, there are blessings and woes, but there are also significant differences between the two that goes beyond whether the sermon was preached from a plain or from a mount. In Matthew, the Beatitudes begin with the familiar, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." But in Luke's account, Jesus begins with, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of heaven." Now, many of the church fathers read Matthew's account of the Beatitudes as ascetical steps towards greater spiritual development. For example, Augustine takes this first beatitude to be an instruction in humility, which then opens up to the Christian the possibility of further spiritual growth as laid out by each of the beatitudes in the rest of the sermon. The goal being to develop each of the virtues in turn and to face down the crises that develop along the way. But the Lucan Sermon on the Plain doesn't allow for that same kind of spiritualization. Jesus seems to be speaking directly to those who are economically poor in the first beatitude. Blessed are you who are poor. But that difference in emphasis between the two accounts actually allows for an even fuller account of the Christian way of life. What it does do is prevent the kind of spiritualization of poverty that would deny the reality of the material. Now, certainly from a critical perspective, Luke is putting forward the kind of concern for the poor that characterizes his gospel overall. And certainly that message itself must continue to be internalized by Christians today. But it also helps us keep in mind that the kind of ascetic tradition put forward by the mothers and fathers of Christian spirituality is an embodied one. What we do with our money and our food and our bodies all matters. Where we go to pray matters. As Jesus has shown us, we can use this mountaintop as a place of prayer and preparation, a place to grow more blessed as we continue on the way.